Hello, everyone. It looks like we don't have anybody yet logged on. That's okay. I was late setting this up, so it's all right. Um, Let me say a few things before we get started. This Q and A is designed mostly to help people who use my books, and that's where the majority of my hello, Angela. That's where the majority of my uh, what do you call it? The expertise. That's where the majority of my expertise lies. Other people shouldn't be giving advice about my books. I've seen I've seen online where people try to give advice about my books. Sometimes they get it right. Other times they're just being negative and want to put me down. And other times they don't get it right. They're trying to help, but they don't get it right. So keep that in mind that the biggest reason why we're here, it's not the only reason, but the biggest reason why we're here is so that we can, because each of the books has, I don't want to say hidden messages or hidden uh, rules or anything like that. It's just that it's impossible to write the books in a way that they work for every single person. So, like for example, in the Daily Routines books, or the Trumpet Chops books, or the Chops Express books, these are all routine books. And it's impossible for me to put every scenario in there, right? It's impossible for me to write in the book um, everything I've found that people do wrong. Okay? So, and that's just those books. That's not even to mention the other books. So, so yes, we want to uh, use most of this. Well, not much. If nobody has questions about that stuff, that's fine. But those should be the questions that take priority. Um, Now, we also want to talk about in general trumpet stuff and in general music stuff based on my experiences. But I have to tell you that when we talk about those things, um, I'm not going to just say I don't have as much authority. I'm not going to say that. I do have authority in those fields. Um, but what kind of authority do I have? Those fields, there is no expert. In the field of music and in the field of trumpet, there's no such thing as an expert. This idea of an expert comes from Marxist ideology. And I know that might upset people if I say that, but that's what it is. And it's not real. The greatest experts outside of Marxism would never say that they're an expert because, according to traditional thought, before Marxism entered into the picture, according to traditional thought, um, the better you get at any topic, the more you understand how little you know. Now, you might be able to compare yourself to somebody else and say, well, this guy is probably not as good as I am. But you never get to a point uh, with, if let me put it this way, if you do get to the point where you consider yourself an expert, you have now become a dangerous person. If you are a doctor and you consider yourself an expert in your field. It is the other people who should tell you that you are an expert. It's not something that you should say about yourself, because you should know deep down that you don't know enough to be an expert. So we can compliment people by saying, oh, no, this guy is an expert. We can do that. But if where you are in your own head is that you call yourself an expert, that's not so good. All right. Now, I am an expert at my books. I am an expert about my method of how I teach. Okay. That let's not confuse that with an entire field of study. Right? Let's not confuse being an expert at my own books that I wrote with being an expert at an entire field of study. It's not the same thing. So yes, this thing about everybody, these guys, everybody being an expert, um, just because they have credentials, that in the past that was never a thing. So anybody got any questions? So we've talked recently about those guys that are selling stuff online, and I'm not against looking into their methods. There's a lot that can be said with having influence from all kinds of different people. I have told you that great trumpet playing is largely subconscious and mental. I think there's advantages to exposing yourself to a lot of different ideas. What I don't like about the guys who are, um, you know, selling their stuff on Facebook and stuff like that, what I don't like is how much they're charging. Okay? What I don't like is how much they're charging. You can get, I guarantee you that what they're offering for that kind of money, you can get just watching videos on YouTube or reading books or going to the forums and stuff like that. I can guarantee you that what they're offering you is not unique enough for the price that they're charging. And when you hear, um, I'll get to you in a second, Angela. Thanks for your patience. When you hear, um, all right, I just lost my train of thought. When you hear, oh yes, I remember now. Sorry. When you hear these guys advertising to the teachers, right? The advertisements are usually advertisements to the players. Specifically, by the way, the comeback players, and there's a reason for that. It's because the comeback players have more money, usually speaking, generally speaking, and the comeback players are more desperate. They are like sitting ducks for these people. And but there are also ads where they are advertising to the teacher. And what are they trying to do to sell to the teacher? They're saying, stop working for so much money, for so little money. That's the first thing. They want you to make more than what you're making now. You should get, this is what they say, you should get what you deserve. What they mean is you should get more than what you deserve. But think about what they're telling the teachers that they're selling to become the same, just like those guys. They're trying to sell the same method they've been using, a method which pays more, a method which you have to is so secret. Oh, they can't tell you. A method that is guaranteed to give you a better, as a teacher, a better lifestyle. They're talking about how much money they can get from you in those videos, in those advertisements. They're trying to convince the teachers that you're not paying enough. And they have techniques that will make you pay more. It's disgusting. When I see these, I don't, you know what? I don't block them because I want them to have to pay exorbitantly to get you to convince you to pay their prices. I don't unsubscribe because I want, every time I get an ad, it costs them money. So I don't unsubscribe from that stuff. It's disgusting and I hate to see it. There is one that two that I appreciate. There is one, and now I don't know how much either of these is. Maybe even then it's too much. But there's one, there's an advertisement that just came out of Charlie Porter selling his books. And then there's another one of, those, one of those forums for master classes. And they have master classes of great trumpet players. Now, depending on how much they're charging, because I haven't clicked through, depending on how much they're charging, it may or may not be a good deal. Most of these people on that list, you can get their own master classes on YouTube. So yes, it might not be worth paying. And they can say, well, it's different. It's not the same as the master classes online. They can say that. Um, if you want to pay for that, and it seems like an offer that because they are famous. But how much of that famous stuff can you get on YouTube? You can get so much of it. Now I know that there are some people that know how to play the game and do not put full master classes online. And that way, when something like this that's paid, that you have to pay a lot for, the only reason you would is because you can't get that anywhere else. So yeah, just be careful with this stuff. Um, anyway, so here we go. Angela says, I came across this issue with a choir director. He felt that his choir was super superior, and that unless you went to the college where he taught, you weren't as good. I understand that happens. The reason why that happens is it's not really their fault. It's not really their fault. Um, different. I like to continue to tell people that the only way trumpet and music is objective is when you're within a culture. And at the universities, they have a culture. And they focus more on the culture, their own culture. I can prove it to you if you want me to prove it to you. They focus on their own culture over and above the music. Now, it's a musical culture, don't get me wrong, but they focus on their own musical culture instead of the actual roots of the music itself. So when they come out of that culture, having done well enough to get their degree, this is especially true for the masters and the doctorates. When they come out of there, being uh, an expert at that college's culture, when they come out, um, they see. This is why I'm saying it's not their fault. When they come out, they see that the other schools are different. Well, if it was the culture that you learned and not the bare roots of the music itself, then yes, you're going to look at everybody else and say, well, this is, especially if you were very successful at that school, they're going to look at everybody else and say, you know what? There's nobody around here that knows what I know as well as I do. And then you get someone from that school that was successful. And you're like, see what I'm talking about. See what I'm talking about. Okay. So yes, this is something that happens. Um, and it's unfortunate, but it's part of life. I don't think it only happens in music. I don't think it's just music. And it was hard for me. It was very difficult for me to figure out that school wasn't about learning. That university, even high school, was not about learning. It was about this, what I'm talking about now. It was about being part of that culture. And there is benefit to do that. There is great benefit to being part of a university's culture, like the music department's culture. There's great benefit to being part of that because those people take care of each other. And they'll help you with once you get out of school if you did a good job and if they like you. It doesn't work if you didn't do a good job, and it doesn't work if they didn't like you. But if you can pull that off, I couldn't pull it off because of my personality. If you can pull that off, you're going to get opportunities that other people don't get. It's a fact of life. And that's today. If anybody asks me, should I go to university? You've got to ask yourself: are you going to learn, or are you going there to be part of that culture? If you're going there to learn, maybe do something else. If you want to be a music student, it might actually be better. If you're the kind of person like I am and can't play social games, it might be better if you want to be a musician to do it without a degree. Now, I say that having done many years, more years than I planned on. One of the reasons I didn't want to be a doctor was because of the number of years you had to be in college. And it turns out I spent that many years in college. Um, how ironic, huh? Um, but the thing is, I would not have been a doctor because it's not about learning the stuff in college. It's about being part of that culture. Now, can you be a good doctor when you come out of that culture? Yes, you can, just like you can be a good musician when you come out of that culture. But that's not what you're learning. When you're at the university, you're learning the culture about the music. And yes, in that environment, you've got enough of the music there to make you a great player. I'm not putting the university down. I'm just making sure you understand that when you're there, it's not to learn, it's to be part of that culture. You will learn. I learned tremendous amounts of information about music while I was in these different universities. I learned tremendous stuff that continues to help me help you. I've got more hours, credit hours, than a graduate, like someone who graduated with a doctorate. I've got more hours. They're low level hours, but I still learned. Sometimes that's even better, right? So I don't feel like I have the equivalent of a you know what I mean? A doctor's. I don't, because there's stuff you have to go through on those higher levels that I didn't go through. Because it was impossible for me to graduate. Does that make sense? But I know the system from the inside and also from the outside because I was one of those people that they did not help. I was one of those that did not benefit from the culture that I was in because for reals, I rejected that culture. That's why I had so many troubles in every school I went to. I rejected the culture because the culture, I could see that the culture was veering off from the music. I could see that. And I couldn't, what's that thing that they call it in the checkbook? I couldn't reconcile that contradiction. So I had a lot of trouble in the universities. Yes, we did the music theory. Yes, we did the different, um, you know, exercises and lessons and etudes and uh, history stuff and all that stuff. Yes, we did all that stuff. Like I said earlier, it's not that I didn't learn. It's not that I didn't learn. But what they were trying to teach me was something bigger than just the music. And I wasn't in a place in my mind where I could understand that. My personality struggles with that kind of stuff. I am an INTP personality. You can see it in my hair. You can see it in my hair. I am an INTP. I struggle with the way I look. Um, Not really caring about the way I look, and that's not a good thing. That kind of thing. And we do as INTPs struggle with things like this. If I had known, look at my kitten. Isn't this one beautiful? We've got 4 new kittens. Um, so I'll just take a break for a second. Mm, mm. So, um, yeah, this has been right now the greatest joy having these new kittens in the house. They came in here. This is like one of the first times they came in, you know, on their own. Anyway, so yes, I'm sorry to keep going on about that. I'm just responding to Angela, who says that his choir director thought he was superior. This does happen in that context. Sunstorm, which, if I remember right, is Mr. Derek. They also mean that they want you to share some of it with them. Oh, I don't remember what I was talking about. Okay, it's nice to see you guys greeting each other. Oh, yes, here we go. Matt Brockman wants about 6,000 upfront, non-refundable. Yeah, okay, so this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That's, in my opinion, you can do that if you've got that kind of money. In my opinion, that's not worth it. If, you know, if it would have to be something absolutely amazing. And I seriously doubt it. I've dug into Matt Brockman specifically, and there's people who have studied his videos and analyzed just how fake they are. And so no, even if his videos weren't fake, and even if all the other stuff I heard about him online, researching him online to see what people were saying, um, 6,000. You can buy a custom trumpet for that. $6,000 for something that really should be free. I'm sorry. In this day and age, because why do I say it should be free? Because it's just information. You don't get one-on-one with him. You get one-on-one with one of his people. If you're selling information in an age where all the information is free, that's why I teach differently than most people. I'm not giving you information. Might be a little bit of that, but all the information I will give you is available for free online, including in my videos. If it's information you're looking for, don't spend that $6,000 to get it. Information should be free. I say that. We sell the books. I don't see books as information right now. And there's a lot in the books that you can get in the videos. But if you're gonna buy a book, then it's worth it, I think. It's not $6,000. That's unreal. In that advertisement, um, one of the things they say, that advertisement to the teachers, one of the things they say is that you shouldn't be trying to sell books. Books don't make you any money. Don't make books. They don't make you any money. Let me tell you something. They're right. The amount of money we make from the books is tiny. If you look at what most people make in their regular day job, you'll never make that much money selling books. I can tell you that because I sell a bunch of them. You will never make that much money selling books. Now, don't get me wrong. The books do help. It helps us. I remember when I was in the hospital, sitting there with my iPad, and ding, 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 there's a new cell. Ding, there's a new cell. Ding, a new cell. And that made me feel good. Would it pay what I had to pay to get out of the hospital? No, not a fraction of it. So no, all the books that we sold in uh, Well, I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital twice. All the books we sold in the hospital when I was there, both times. Uh, the books we sold and the compositions we sold were only a fraction of what I had to pay for one doctor, not let alone all the other doctors and the hospital bill itself. All of what we sold during that time will come to be a fraction of one doctor's. This is before we had the you know what they call it, out of pocket limit. And so what we had to pay for one single doctor uh, was 3 or 4 times what uh, we made in selling books and music during that time. So uh, I don't mind selling books. I don't mind other people selling books. I buy their books. I think that the books are worth it because what you get in a video and what you get in the book is two different things. Okay. Is it information? I don't think that the books are information. The books are more conceptual. And yes, you can kind of do that online. The problem with online is that the people who watch the videos will not watch the more conceptual stuff. I hope that makes sense. When I make a video, it's not the same stuff as what's in my books. There's overlap. Don't get me wrong. There is overlap. And some of them might be more overlap than others. Does that make sense? The book I'm writing, well, I'm writing several books. The book I'm writing now, there's no way I could put that in videos. No way. I'm talking about the hey, come here. I'm talking about what do you call it? There they go. You see them in the background? They're at that running stage. I gotta watch out. I don't want to step on them. Anyway, I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. This this the guys that are advertising, they're all part of the same system. The guys that are advertising on Facebook and YouTube, they charge way too much for what they're doing. I don't normally put people down. You guys have heard me say this. I won't say the guy's name. In fact, I've done that with these guys, but you guys put the name on there and I don't mind. If you already know who it is, I don't mind confirming that. But he's not. Matt Brockman is not the first tier. It's that guy, Paul, the trombonist, or somebody, well, I don't know what he calls himself. He's the one teaching all these guys to do this. It's a system, and it's a system, unfortunately, that works. So, so Seppo is here. Hello, Seppo. Um, Angela says, I know because I've lived it. I didn't go to college. I studied music because I love singing and playing the trumpet. I hired private teachers. That's what you should do if you don't want to be part of that culture. I didn't pay any attention to them. There you go. Now, I will tell you that the teachers that you study with should be good at what you want to be. If you want to be a jazz trumpet player, take lessons with a good jazz trumpet player, not a classical guy that plays jazz on the side. You will not get the level of education taking lessons with someone who uh, who just does it on the side. Um, and it's the same thing for every style. It's better to, if you want to play salsa, get a salsa teacher. There are plenty of them. If you want to play classical, get a classical teacher. Make sure that he's good too. Uh, yeah. So now the reason why we have to do lessons instead of quote unquote teaching ourselves, now it's possible to be a great player without uh, lessons and teaching yourself. The problem is that you don't get the feedback that you need. If you're just trying to use information, it's going to take you a lot longer to get where you're going because you don't know which of that information applies to you. I often get students that come in and say, why is it that I don't have this, this, and that? I said, why do you want this and that? Oh, because I read this article, and the article says I should have this and that. And at that point, now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I don't ever encourage people to not read those articles. I don't ever encourage people to avoid watching YouTube videos to help them get better. I think the more of this information you're exposed to, the better. Because remember what I always say, trumpet playing is largely mental. I say that it's more than 99% mental. And one of the best things we can do to improve our minds is to expose ourselves to lots of that information. That should either let me be clear about that. It should either be lots of it or none. You should be constantly online getting more and more information, or you should have a teacher. And don't do any of that other stuff. That's an either or. I hope that makes sense. You should have a good teacher. Now you can have the other option, a great teacher and cover all that information. So I guess there's a few options here. Let me clarify those options before we move on. Okay. You can option number one, you can be self-taught and explore all of that information. As much of it as you can. There's there's actually too much of it. You will never cover all of it. It's impossible to cover all of it. Even that was your full-time job, even if it was your full-time job, you wouldn't be able to get all of it. I figured that out the hard way. Um, Option number two is to be self-taught without any of that information. Don't do just a little bit. And, I don't recommend that. If you're going to be self-taught, do the other one, option number one. But it's possible to do option number one. Why do we say that you should have more of this information or none of it? Because of the damage that it does to your mind. It can screw up the way you think about the trumpet. There is no one method out there that has all the right answers for all the right people. There is none. Don't ever think that's how it works. My method doesn't work for everybody, and there's reason for that I won't go into right now. But I readily admit that my method is not for everyone. And doesn't that show you how honest I am? Because if I was here just trying to make a sale, I wouldn't say something like that. I do believe that my method, my books work for more people, like over 50% of the people. I do believe that. But I don't believe that it works for everyone. Option number 3 is to have a teacher and ignore all that stuff out there. That's not a bad approach. The, because with one teacher, you have that back and forth. And a good teacher can help you reach the goals that you want to reach without you having to do all this searching online through these other methods. So yes, I do think it's good to have a teacher and do what that teacher says, if that teacher is willing to help you. If Here's what you don't want in a teacher. You don't want a teacher who's trying to make you just like him. If he's trying to make you a copy of himself, that is not good teaching. And it doesn't matter how good he is. That's not how trumpet lessons work. If you're going to do it that way, you need to have multiple teachers. It's sort of like if that trumpet player thinks that his way to play is the only way to play, then all you're getting from him is information about his way of playing. What you need to look for in a good teacher is somebody that looks at how different you are and works with that. A great trumpet teacher, in my opinion. Now, describing myself, of course. I do consider myself a great trumpet teacher. Um, but a great trumpet teacher is somebody who can look at you as the person who you are. This person recognizes your differences and then matches that up with what you want to do on the trumpet. That's the qualities of a great trumpet teacher. So if you're not going to be with a great trumpet teacher, you need to have more than one teacher. Because it's just like what I said about the internet. Okay? You have to have more than one teacher if that's how you teach. Because my warning to you about those other types of teachers, they can destroy you. They can also take you to high places. But the truth is, they don't care for the people who can't do what they do. You become, at that point, a loser. And there's stories in the music world about people who were labeled that way and went on to crush it. And it's because of this that I'm talking about. Okay? So if you don't have a teacher that, okay, you know what? Okay, here's option number 4. I just thought of another option. If you have one of those kinds of teachers, then I encourage you to look for lots of information online. They won't like it, so keep it a secret. Do not tell that kind of teacher that's what you're doing. They will take offense and you will get nothing from that school. I promise you that. I've been in it enough to know how that works. Do not tell them when you're working with that kind of teacher that is trying to make you a copy of himself or herself. Do not tell them that you're looking into all this online stuff. I heard someone say about another teacher, those teachers should all be lined up and shot. Do not tell them. And that's what's hard for me, right? I learned a lot outside of the people who I was taking lessons from. I was hungry for that information, extremely hungry for that information. And when I saw, this is what I was talking about earlier, when I first started talking about this today, when I saw that there were discrepancies in the other stuff that I was learning from the stuff that I was learning from my teacher, I would bring it up and it would always upset them. Why am I not just taking what they said and going with it? Okay? So that's option 3, is have a teacher like that, but be hungry for information outside of his lessons. Just don't tell him that's what you're doing. Seriously. Don't ruin your career like that. I was able to make it work, but it was not as easy as it would have been if I didn't go into those situations. I don't think it was possible for me. Like I said, for me, it was a personality issue. For me, it was a personality issue. I don't think I should have ever gone to university. I don't get me wrong, I love my teachers. It wasn't the individual teachers, it was the culture of the schools, because the teachers want you to learn the culture. They wouldn't call it culture. They would think that what they're teaching is music. That's not true. I can tell you, I promise you. And if you guys need me to talk about this in another Q and A, bring it up. I have evidence that what I'm saying is true. And if you're watching this and you're one of those teachers that your way is the right way, I would like you to think about what I'm saying here. Okay, Mr. Derek says, I looked I took Brockman's intro lesson last year. I'm definitely not an expert, but I commented on something he said was incorrect, and he became hostile and confrontational. Yes, I heard that. I've seen this all over the internet, that they get upset when they question their method. Think of why they question why they get upset. They get upset because when you do that, you affect their mighty income, the income they feel like they deserve to have. Not my words, their words. When you give a negative comment, other people will read it and not pay the $6,000. Of course they're going to get upset. Angela says, I would like to know if mouthpieces matter. I would like to improve my upper range. The mouthpiece can help, but not much. Here's what I do believe, that if you have the wrong mouthpiece, now this is like apples and oranges. I do believe that the wrong mouthpiece can make a difference. Okay? So we do spend time looking for the right mouthpiece because if you have a really bad one, it can prevent you from having a higher range. But if you have a decent one for your embouchure, and I mean just decent, not great, not perfect. If you have a decent mouthpiece, it's not really going to do much to help your high range. And how do you know if you have a decent mouthpiece? Really, it's about the sound. It's got to be about the sound. And this is, there are people that will get like what we call pea shooters that have very, very shallow mouthpieces and have real puny sounds. That is a terrible mouthpiece. Not it might be a good mouthpiece. I have a student right now that plays on a jet tone and has a beautiful sound. And I have a colleague, uh, 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 Luis Juarez, great trumpet player. He plays on the the old jet tones. Great sound, beautiful sound. So I think the first thing you want is to make sure that the mouthpiece you have gives you a great sound. I don't have a problem with trying other mouthpieces, even paying for them. If you want to be a great trumpet player, you should have a collection of mouthpieces. I hope that makes sense. So, uh, I also take vocal lessons. The woman who I take lessons with sings choral music, which is what I like. She is an excellent singer. That's a good way to do it, right? Because let's say you're doing an operatic. You don't want to sing opera, but you hook up with an operatic singer who only does opera, doesn't do the choral stuff, doesn't do um, solos. Well, they can do solo, but I don't mean. I mean like the the church solos where it's not as much vibrato and the phrasing is different and stuff like that. It's really helps to have someone that does what you do, what you want to do. Angela says, I chose option number three. There you go. That's sort of a safe option if they're a good teacher. I do my own thing. I want to play classical music. I don't mind jazz, but my goal is to play for church. That's right, with the choir. Good to know what you want. I have a 5C Bach mouthpiece. Yeah, there's no way I can tell you if that's a good mouthpiece for you. That's not how it works. Now, that's one of the ways where you can tell if it's a good teacher or not. That's one of the ways you can tell is that if they tell you this is the right mouthpiece because it's the same mouthpiece they play, or um, it's always the mouthpiece that they give out to every student. Um, in other words, if they're trying to say that there's only one right mouthpiece, that's not a good teacher. That's one of the signs that it's not a good teacher. Finding the right mouthpiece takes time, and nobody. That's just like I hate using this analogy because it's. I wish I had a better analogy. Um, if you hear that Michael Jordan plays size, I don't know what size mouth foot uh, what's it called? Sneakers. You know, if you find out that his sneakers are size 15, I'm just making up a number. His sneakers are 15, and you buy a size 15 shoe because he plays on a 15 size shoe. So you want that you do that because you want to be a better basketball player? Good luck with that. Good luck with that. That's not how it works. And this applies also to trumpets, to uh, uh, anything equipment right wise, right? It applies to no, I keep saying mouthpieces. Um, Mutes. Not every mute works the same way with every player. There's the mute trumpet combination. Some of the trumpets have bells so big the mute won't stay in. And then there's other trumpets with the opposite problem. The bell is so small the mute won't go in. Does that make sense? So you have to look around. Footfault says if by the way, welcome Footfault. It's funny how close in size 3C, 5C, and 7C is. Really, it's rim shapes that can also make a difference, and cup depth. I agree. I also think that the diameter. My trumpet teacher said to check out other mouthpieces. I will check them out when I get a chance. Good. Footfall says, and it changes your as you get older. That is also true. You learn which ones make playing easier to get the sound you want. That last thing one wants, the last thing one wants is to think about is your mouthpiece when playing. That's correct. Julie says, hello, Julie. Julie says, I sometimes have to change my mouthpiece if I change trumpets. That's also the thing. There's a thing about the trumpet and the mouthpiece matching. I personally don't have as much of a deal with that. Um, but it is a phenomenon. Yes, some trumpet receivers are better with certain length mouthpiece shanks. That's correct as well. Um, that is also true. Angela says, I don't have a mute, so my neighbors just put up with me. They complimented me and said, you're getting better. Well, there you go. All right, everyone. It's great to see you. Thanks for hanging out. Great questions. I hope I didn't get too overly emotional. And we'll see you on the next one. I don't know. I haven't looked at my schedule. But probably next week will be okay. So, unless it's like well, I'll check it out. It'll probably be okay. All right. Well, we'll see you next time. God bless you and have a great weekend.